You can be sitting in a room full of people and still feel like you're watching from somewhere else. Not anxious, not depressed, not shut down, just separate, like there's an invisible wall between you and everyone around you. You laugh when others laugh. You contribute to conversations. You show up to gatherings. From the outside, you seem fine, maybe even engaged. But inside, there's this persistent sense that you're not really there. That you're performing connection rather than feeling it. And the strangest part is that no one seems to notice, which only makes the distance feel more real. That's the paradox of disconnection. It's not about being alone. It's about feeling alone while surrounded by people. It's not isolation in the traditional sense, it's something more subtle, more confusing. Because you're doing all the right things, you're present, you're responsive, you're participating in your own life. But somewhere along the way, a gap opened up between you and the world, and you can't quite figure out when it happened or why it won't close. Psychologists have long studied what they call dissociative experiences, moments when the mind creates distance from immediate reality as a way of managing overwhelming emotion or stress. But what's less discussed is the chronic, low-grade version of this. The everyday disconnection that doesn't qualify as a disorder, but still fundamentally shapes how someone moves through the world. It's the feeling of being slightly removed from your own life, watching it unfold rather than fully inhabiting it. And here's the thing, people who feel this way often function remarkably well. They hold jobs, they maintain relationships, they meet responsibilities. On paper, their lives look intact. But internally, there's a sense that they're going through the motions, that they're operating on autopilot while some essential part of them remains unreachable, locked away in a place even they can't access. This pattern often has roots in early experience, not necessarily trauma in the dramatic sense, but environments where emotional expression felt unsafe or unwelcome. Maybe feelings were dismissed as too much or too sensitive. Maybe needs were met with impatience or irritation. Maybe the message, spoken or unspoken, was that certain parts of you were inconvenient. Children don't have the language or power to challenge these messages. They adapt. They learn to mute themselves, and over time, that muting becomes automatic. Attachment researchers describe this as a disruption in emotional attunement. When a child's internal experience is consistently mismatched with the responses they receive from caregivers, they begin to mistrust their own feelings. They learn that what they feel and what others reflect back don't align. So they start to disconnect from their emotions as a protective measure. If feelings aren't safe to express, they become something to manage, to suppress, to keep at a distance. The result is an adult who can function socially, but struggles to feel genuinely connected. They can engage in conversation, but often feel like they're performing rather than relating. They can be physically present, but emotionally absent. Not by choice, but by conditioning. And because this pattern developed so early, it feels normal. They don't always recognize it as disconnection. They just assume this is how life feels for everyone. What makes this experience particularly isolating is how difficult it is to explain. How do you tell someone you feel disconnected when you're standing right in front of them? How do you describe the sensation of being both here and not here? Most people don't have the language for it, and even if they did, who would they tell? The very nature of the experience is that it creates distance from the people who might understand, so they stay silent, they keep showing up, They maintain the appearance of connection while feeling increasingly removed from it. And that silence only deepens the disconnection, because now they're not just separate from others, they're separate from their own experience. They can't even acknowledge what they're feeling, because acknowledging it would mean admitting something is wrong. And if something is wrong, then maybe they're broken. Maybe this is just who they are. But here's what often goes unrecognized. Disconnection is not a personality flaw, it's a protective mechanism. At some point, usually early in life, disconnecting felt safer than staying present. Maybe presence meant feeling too much. Maybe it meant being hurt or disappointed or overwhelmed. So the mind learned to create distance, not as a conscious choice, but as an adaptive response. And that response, once established, becomes the default way of being. Neuroscience offers some insight into how this works. When we experience emotional overwhelm, particularly in childhood, the brain can develop what's sometimes called a dissociative baseline. Instead of fully processing emotions in real time, the nervous system learns to dampen them. It's as if someone turned down the volume on felt experience. Information still comes in, but it's filtered, muted, held at arm's length. And over time, that muted state becomes so familiar that full presence feels foreign, even threatening. This is why people who feel disconnected often struggle with intensity of any kind. Not just negative emotions, but positive ones too. Joy can feel overwhelming. Excitement can feel unsafe. Even love can feel destabilizing because it requires vulnerability. And vulnerability means lowering the protective distance they've maintained for so long. So they keep themselves in a neutral zone, not too high, not too low, just enough presence to function, but not enough to feel fully alive. And there's a particular loneliness in this, because they can see other people connecting. They watch friends embrace, lovers lean into each other, families laugh together, and part of them wants that. Part of them aches for it. But another part, the part that learned connection isn't safe, keeps them hovering just outside of it, close enough to observe, too far to truly participate. What's especially painful is that others rarely notice, because people who feel disconnected have often become skilled at mimicking connection. They've learned the social scripts. They know when to nod, when to laugh, when to offer the appropriate response. From the outside, they seem engaged, but inside, they're monitoring, calculating, adjusting. They're not spontaneously relating. They're performing relatedness. And performance, no matter how convincing, is exhausting. Over time, this exhaustion compounds, because maintaining the appearance of connection while feeling fundamentally separate requires constant energy. There's no rest in it. Even moments that should feel relaxing, like time with friends or family, become work. They have to stay alert, stay appropriate, stay engaged. And when they finally get alone, when they can drop the performance, they're too depleted to even know what they actually feel. This creates a strange cycle. They feel disconnected, which makes them withdraw, but withdrawing only increases the disconnection, which makes them feel more separate, which makes engaging feel even harder. And round it goes, each turn of the cycle deepening the gap between them and everyone else. Jung wrote about what he called the false self, the adaptive persona we construct to navigate a world that doesn't feel safe for our authentic expression. He argued that many people spend their lives identified with this false self, never quite touching the real self that exists beneath it. For people who feel chronically disconnected, the false self has become so dominant that the real self feels inaccessible, maybe even non-existent. And here's where it gets more complex. Sometimes the disconnection isn't constant. Sometimes there are moments, brief flashes, where the distance dissolves, maybe in nature, maybe through art or music, maybe in the middle of the night when defenses are down. Suddenly they feel something fully. The world comes into focus. They remember what presence feels like. And then, just as quickly, it's gone. the distance returns, and they're left wondering if those moments were real or just anomalies. Those glimpses can be both hopeful and devastating. Hopeful because they prove that connection is possible, that something beneath the numbness still exists. Devastating because they highlight how much of life is spent in the muted version, the disconnected version, the one that doesn't quite feel real. What often prevents people from addressing this is shame. There's a quiet shame in feeling disconnected, a sense that they're fundamentally different from everyone else, that something essential is missing in them. They look around and assume everyone else is connecting naturally, effortlessly. They don't see that many people are also performing, also struggling, also feeling separate. So they stay quiet, convinced that their experience is evidence of some deep inadequacy. But disconnection is not inadequacy. It's a response, and like any response that was once protective, it can be examined, understood, and gradually shifted. Not through willpower or positive thinking, but through the slow, uncomfortable work of learning to tolerate presence again, learning to feel without immediately disconnecting, learning to stay in the body even when emotions arise. This process often begins with simply noticing the pattern, recognizing the moments when you disconnect. Maybe it's when conversation gets too personal. Maybe it's when someone expresses strong emotion. Maybe it's when you start to feel something yourself and reflexively shut it down. Just noticing, without judgment, without trying to fix it, just seeing that it happens. Because awareness alone begins to create space. When you can observe the disconnection, you're no longer completely identified with it. There's a you that notices the pattern, which means there's a you that exists separate from the pattern. And that's the beginning of change. Not dramatic transformation, just the first small step toward understanding that disconnection is something you do, not something you are. From there, the work is gradual. It's about building tolerance for felt experience. Starting small, maybe staying present for just a few seconds longer than feels comfortable. Maybe allowing yourself to feel one emotion without immediately analyzing or dismissing it. Maybe sitting with the discomfort of connection instead of reflexively creating distance. This is not easy work, because every time you practice presence, you're working against years of conditioning that says disconnection is safer. Your nervous system will resist. It will create anxiety or numbness or restlessness, anything to pull you back to the familiar distance. But if you can stay with it, even briefly, you begin to teach your system that presence is survivable. That feeling doesn't destroy you. That connection, while vulnerable, is also what makes life feel real. What often surprises people in this process is discovering that they're not as alone as they thought. That when they start to speak honestly about their experience, others recognize it. Not everyone, but enough. Because disconnection, in various forms, is far more common than we admit. We've built a culture that prioritizes performance over presence, image over authenticity, and in that culture, many people are walking around feeling fundamentally separate while pretending they're not. There's also grief in this recognition. Grief for all the years spent disconnected. Grief for the relationships that remained surface level because depth felt too risky. Grief for the life that was lived at a distance, observed rather than inhabited. That grief deserves space. It's not self-pity, it's acknowledgement. And allowing yourself to feel it without rushing to transcend it is part of coming back to yourself. Because that's what this is really about. Not learning to connect with others, but learning to connect with yourself first. The disconnection from others is often just a mirror of the deeper disconnection from your own inner world. When you've spent years muting your feelings, monitoring your responses, keeping yourself at a safe distance, you lose touch with what's actually happening inside you. And if you can't access yourself, how can you truly access anyone else? So the work starts internally. checking in with yourself, asking what you actually feel, not what you think you should feel, noticing sensations in your body, listening to the quiet thoughts you usually dismiss. It's unglamorous work. It doesn't look like much from the outside, but internally, it's radical. It's reclaiming territory you abandoned long ago. And slowly, as you rebuild connection with yourself, something shifts in how you relate to others. You stop performing quite so much. You allow moments of genuine response, even if they're imperfect. You risk being seen, even if only in small ways. And sometimes, rarely at first, you feel it. That sense of actual connection. Not performed, not managed, just real. Those moments don't erase the disconnection. They don't solve everything, but they remind you that presence is possible. That beneath the protective distance, you're still there. And maybe, with time and patience, you can learn to inhabit your life instead of watching it from the outside. Not because you have to, not because someone told you to, but because somewhere beneath the numbness, you remember what it feels like to be fully here. And part of you, however small, wants that again.